Hey guys, Nebraska Farm Boy here, and today we're talking about the best caliber / gauge for your farm gun. Now the farm gun has to serve a wide variety of purposes, from putting down sick animals, to killing varmints out in the field, or the chicken coop, what have you. They serve a wide variety of purposes, and personally I don't think that one caliber fits every situation that you'll ever run into on a farm. So I put together a list of some of my favorite calibers that I would use and do use around the farm. So for me, the cartridge that I'm going to use in a farm gun has to fit a few qualities. First of all, it has to be effective for the game or varmint or whatever that I'm going out to kill. It has to be a humane shot. It also has to be easily accessible and for a reasonable price, essentially no shooting rats with a 30-06. And it's also nice if it's relatively low powered for around the farmyard because, you don't want it over penetrating, which don't assume that your bullet's not going to over penetrate. Hit where you're aiming at and don't aim in the wrong direction. But it's always good to have that extra safety measure to fall back on. So the first caliber I want to bring up is the .22 long rifle. And this thing is small, it's cost effective, but it has enough power to drop pins. This thing is more than enough to kill anything smaller than a raccoon out to 75 yards. Plenty for butchering day with the hogs. You can drop a cow with this. Generally I like another caliber that's coming up next for that, but it will work, usually. Now one of the main reasons that I like this cartridge is it's safer to use around livestock. Definitely if you hit your livestock it will cause damage, but it's a lot safer. It helps prevent overpenetration. It's safer for when you're shooting rats around the farm or the raccoon in the chicken coop. It helps save damage on your building. It's overall a just really useful round. Not to mention it's great for small game hunting and plinking. Next on the list is the .22 Magnum. And I know a lot of you are going, not the .22 Magnum, one of the 17s. And maybe you're right, maybe the 17 is better than the .22 Magnum. But this is what I've grown up shooting. It's just kind of what I like. This is very similar to the .22 long rifle. It's just longer, as you can see, than the .22 long rifle. It has roughly the same diameter of bullet. It's just slightly bigger, but not enough to make a difference. It will extend your range out farther from that 75-yard range to 100, maybe even 150 yards. It packs a bigger punch. I'd say that this is just enough power to kill a coyote. And to me, it's just a little bit more accurate, at least sight to sideways. You can do surgery with this thing if you sight in your scope at like 50 yards. You can do surgery. Like it'll hit the exact spot that you're aiming at. It'll hit from 50 to 75 yards. But then it has this really bad habit of dropping way down, so you have to adjust for that. Some people call it on the verge of semi-obsolete, but it's not going away anytime soon. You can still find it plenty of places. It is cheaper than some of your rifle rounds. It's certainly not as cheap as it should be, but then isn't that with every cartridge? So yeah, this is very similar to the .22 long rifle, just costs a little bit more and gives you a little bit more power, a little bit farther reach. And then next on the list, I have the .223 Remington. And this is definitely most famous for a self-defense round in the AR-15 platform, but it also makes a pretty nifty farm round. This is obviously good for coyotes, bobcats, the larger stuff. Probably not going to be shooting rats with this thing. It definitely brings your range out to 150, maybe even 200 yards, getting good hits with it. Some people I'm sure have made good hits way farther out than that, but it gets a little bit iffy with this thing. It's just a little bit of a light bullet with less power behind it than say a .22-250. But yeah, it's plenty adequate for your average coyote range. A little bit more expensive than the other two cartridges, but it's still not bad because it's such a popular cartridge for self-defense and whatnot. You can get it for a very reasonable price. And then alternatively, it all depends kind of on what gun you have. You could go with 7.62x39 or 243. Now, I don't own a .243 personally, which I do hope to someday, but this does make one really good coyote cartridge. And then you might wonder why I brought up 7.62x39. Most people probably wouldn't, but there's a lot of SKSs out there. And if you have an SKS, it will work for coyotes, and believe me, it drops cows very well. And then finally, we have the iconic 12 gauge. This allows you to, depending on what your load is, kill any varmint. I mean, really, let's face it. This 12 gauge will drop a bear if it's loaded with a slug. It just limits your range a little bit. If you're going to go use it as a shotgun instead of like trying to turn your shotgun into a rifle, which to me is just a little bit weird, you're going to probably have a range of about, depends on your choke, but probably 25 to 50 yards. It's very nice for the farmer who just wants to point the gun at the raccoon, pull the trigger, have the gun go bang, and the raccoon fall dead. Because it really does do that well. It does have the one disadvantage of with that shot pattern, you're going to create a lot more damage around the farmyard, but sometimes it's worth it. So there you have it. Those are some of my favorite varmint getter cartridges for the farm gun. And obviously, what you use is often just what you have. When you see the coyote in the field and you have your deer rifle, that's what you're going to use. But sometimes it's nice just to have a duty-specific gun. And those are the calibers I would probably go with. 22 long rifle for in-close, rats, raccoons, what have you. 22 mag for a little bit out further. And then you can just start getting into that coyote range. Personally, I wouldn't shoot a coyote with 22 mag much farther than 75, maybe 100 yards. Further than that, you can go with the 223. That'll extend your range out to 150, 200 yards. Personally, someday I hope to experiment with the 243. If you want a really hard-hitting but fairly inexpensive cartridge, you can go with 7.62 by 39. Or if you are just the kind of guy who likes to just point at something and pull the trigger, have the gun go bang, and have that thing be dead, well, 12 gauge might be the gun for you. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it helpful. And handling these rounds so much has really made me want to go pull a trigger. So, we'll see you next time.